When Michael Jordan sat across from NBC's cameras for the first time in years, he didn't need a dramatic entrance or a bold proclamation. He just spoke. Calm, collected, reflective. Yet within minutes, it became clear that something seismic had shifted. This wasn't just a nostalgic TV appearance from the game's greatest player. It was a moment of reckoning. A quiet storm. The kind that rolls in with a smile but leaves the entire landscape changed when it passes. The interview began simply enough. The host asked Jordan if he ever picked up a basketball anymore, just for fun. He laughed, shrugged it off, and said he hadn't touched one in years. But then he told a story, the kind of small, seemingly harmless anecdote that becomes something much bigger once you realize who's telling it. He said he'd been at the Ryder Cup, renting a house owned by someone who had a basketball hoop in the driveway. The owner's grandkids wanted to meet him, and as a lighthearted gesture, the man asked Jordan to take one free throw. Just one. It should have been nothing. A simple flick of the wrist for the greatest to ever do it. But Jordan said he was nervous. Nervous like he hadn't been in years. Those kids, he said, had heard stories about him from their parents. They didn't know the man. They knew the myth. And in that moment, with a ball in his hands and a lifetime of expectation staring back at him, he felt it all. The pressure. The weight of legacy. The need to live up to what people still believed he was. And of course, he made it. He swished it. Because that's what he does. But the meaning of that story went far beyond a free throw. It was Jordan reminding everyone that even decades later, even long after retirement, his relationship with competition hasn't faded. It's embedded in his DNA. That free throw wasn't just a gesture for kids. It was a message to a generation that's forgotten what it means to need to win. Jordan didn't come to NBC to criticize today's NBA directly. That's not his style. He didn't need to name names or point fingers. His words carried an undertone, a quiet, surgical critique of what the game has become. When he said he wished he could take a magic pill, put on shorts, and play again, it wasn't wistful nostalgia. It was something sharper. It was his way of saying, I could still compete. I could still dominate. I still live for that fire, even if the game doesn't anymore. For anyone listening closely, this wasn't an old legend missing his glory days. It was a competitor disappointed with how easily the modern game seems to move on from the values that built it. Today's NBA celebrates efficiency, analytics, and load management. It celebrates preserving the body instead of testing its limits. But Jordan's very existence was built on pushing those limits. He didn't manage his career like a business. He treated it like a war. And in that single interview, he exposed the gap between eras. Not through confrontation, but through contrast. When he played, Jordan believed every night was sacred. He famously treated preseason games in small cities like championship finals because he knew those fans might only get one chance to see him. His former teammate, Stacey King, once recalled that Jordan would remind them before meaningless exhibitions. Someone's here who's never seen me play before. They deserve my best. That wasn't arrogance. That was duty. Now look at the NBA today. Star players sit out nationally televised games for load management. Fans save hundreds of dollars to see their favorite player, only to learn minutes before tip-off that he's resting. Preseason? Half the league doesn't even bother showing up. It's a different world, one defined not by obligation to fans, but by career strategy, body maintenance, and brand management. Jordan's comments on NBC weren't a rant about the old days. They were a reflection of that loss, the erosion of something sacred between players and fans. He wasn't saying the modern generation is lazy. He was saying they're missing the point. Basketball, for him, wasn't just a job or a platform for sponsorships. It was an identity. It was duty. Even his nervousness in front of those kids at the Ryder Cup proves it. That pressure, that almost irrational need to perform perfectly for an audience, no matter how small, that's what greatness used to look like. The expectation wasn't a burden. It was oxygen. Today, players view that same weight as a threat to longevity, as something to be managed rather than embraced. Jordan's moment on NBC made it clear he doesn't recognize that kind of mindset. Not because he's bitter, but because it's alien to everything that made him who he is. And here's the thing the NBA might not be ready to admit. Michael Jordan doesn't need to raise his voice to make people listen. When he speaks, even softly, even for 4 minutes, the entire sport tilts toward him. He doesn't just represent an era. He represents a philosophy. The idea that the game comes before everything else. That playing through pain, exhaustion, and expectation isn't heroism. It's the baseline requirement. That's why his reappearance on NBC isn't just a heartwarming moment for fans of the 90s. It's a potential problem for the modern NBA. Because when Jordan starts talking, people start comparing. His presence alone invites the question the league hates most. Are today's players built the same way? The answer doesn't always flatter the modern game. The NBA has worked hard to evolve. It's built around analytics, recovery science, mental health awareness, and player empowerment. All good things in theory. But those same values have created a kind of distance between players and the raw emotion that used to define basketball. Fans don't remember Jordan for his efficiency rating or his player impact estimate. They remember him bleeding on the court, tongue out, eyes locked on the rim, playing through fevers and broken bones because he couldn't imagine doing anything else. The NBA's stars today are more business savvy, more health conscious, and more controlled than ever. But in that control, something primal has been lost. The chaos, the desperation, the feeling that the court is life and death. When Jordan talks about wanting to play again, you can sense the difference in his voice. It's not longing, it's hunger. Even in his 60s, he's wired for competition. That's why he's uneasy watching today's version of the game, not because the players aren't talented, but because they don't seem consumed by it in the same way. And make no mistake, the league hears it. They know that if Jordan keeps appearing on NBC, keeps telling stories about showing up for fans, keeps talking about playing through pain, he's going to start reframing the public conversation. Because for the first time in a long time,